eventually people are going to say, what the hell is going on?
No matter how far you go into the dark, when you flip, you go exactly the same place to the light in our galaxy. Everything. Because everything is in balance. Everything is a polarity.
I think it's just going to get weirder and weirder and weirder, and finally it's going to be so weird that people are going to have to talk about how weird it is.
What the hell is going on, everybody? Big show today. Joe Rogan has had a moment of contact. And the reason why I've titled it like that is not just to try and finesse the search engine algorithm, but because we are also going to be looking at the new moment of contact, not the trailer, but the little snippet of the interview with the Brazilian doctor who saw the being from the Varginha, Brazil case. So we're going to be looking at that. A little bit of Ross Coulthart, bit of News Nation as well. That's probably where we're going to start. And yes, I know I was just roasting News Nation the other day. I know. It's kind of like a toxic relationship. You know, when you just kind of can't get out of it, it's so good. You just keep coming back even though you know it's not good for you. Yeah, that's what's happening. No, but also there is some interesting stuff on there. I do still think it is the CNN for alternative people. But that, as I always say, that doesn't mean you should discount everything that's on there. I think you can still find a little bit of nuggets. You just have to dig through a little bit of shit, right? Our girl is here, our most beautiful girl. And by the way, guys, before we say hello to Suki, after the stream, we're doing part 2 of the V mini-series. Okay, we did part 1 the other night. Straight after this one, in Discord, which is free for everyone, link below, we're going to be doing part 2. So let's go say hello to this girl. You're getting a close-up in her ear. This isn't actually, we're doing an ear inspection, actually. And she doesn't realize she's going to have to reposition herself to eat this little snack. And by the way, guys, as you would have seen on the front screen, we are partnered with Proton VPN. You can support this channel and protect yourself on the internet by going to that link and getting yourself 23% off a Proton suite. That's a privacy suite. It's not just a VPN. It's 500 gig of cloud storage, so you can store your stuff on the cloud, encrypted, emails, all the good stuff. It's a full suite. There's plenty more. They don't pay me to advertise it, so I'm not going to give you the full spiel, but you can support me by subscribing there as well. So let's dig straight into it because I don't want today's show to go for too long because we've got a movie to watch. We'll jump straight over to Ross Coulthart, and we're going to start in from his Q&A that happened this week. There were a couple of good questions that I think we should talk about. I was just going to do the Bluebeam question where they spoke about Project Bluebeam because Ross had a really interesting answer. But I thought the question that preceded that was worth looking at as well. And it's pretty quick, so it's a good way to start off the show. Let's just catch up on some super chats quickly, though. Corrupt NPC is gifted one. You are a legend. Thank you very much, sir. Artemis, you little freak. Welcome aboard, you little weirdo. And Trizzle987 says, look at the ears on that dog. Those ears got ears. They are that big. And she's really she's not in position tonight. Suki, we've gone through this. We practiced for this. You've been through your training. You've been through work. You've been through the induction. Charlie Stewart, celebrating 2 months as a member, says, loving the weirdness. Thank you very much, Charlie. Loving having you here. And look, she's sitting there. I don't really know what to do much about it. It's not great footage, but I think we're getting ear cam tonight. It's because there are snacks here and she knows it. She knows there's snacks, so she's attentive tonight. All right, let's jump straight into the first clip. So this one is about 10 minutes and we got 2 questions to look at here. So as always, we'll stop off along the way. First question is around the Tic Tac and what was under the water. Was it connected to the Tic Tac? Was it an alien submarine? Trizzle987, you little freak, sir. Thank you very much for staying with us as a member.
Okay, Ross, here's an email coming in from Sebastian. Hi, Ross and Megan. Congratulations for your work. Ross, you have stated that according to your sources, the 2004 Tic Tac near San Diego was Lockheed Martin's. However, Commander Fravor said in Lex Friedman's et al. That there was a gigantic structure below the water and some kind of relationship with the Tic Tac. That doesn't add up to the Lockheed theory unless they have reverse engineered an alien submarine. Can you elaborate on that? Thank you very much.
Look, it's a good question. And yes, you're correct. David Fravor did report seeing an object possibly sitting just under the ocean where the Tic Tac was hovering. I don't know if he said that there was a relationship between the Tic Tac and the object under the water, other than the fact that the Tic Tac was hovering above an area of water that looked like it had something underneath it. It would be speculative to suggest that David Fravor was saying that there was a relationship. I don't think he would have any evidence. I don't think he's ever suggested that there was a relationship between that object and the object that he perceived under the water. All I'm saying, and I'll reiterate this, is that sources have told me that the Tic Tac that was seen by David Fravor was being operated or controlled by people associated with Lockheed Martin. And as I've said earlier, we don't know if that means the object was constructed by Lockheed Martin. I actually think that's highly unlikely, or whether it was being operated, for example, psionically by psionics who were in the employ of Lockheed Martin, which I think is more plausible. It also
Don't you guys think it's kind of crazy that Ross is saying, I don't think it was under the control of Lockheed Martin. I think it's much more likely that it was being psionically controlled. Like, isn't that crazy? That that's what he believes is the more likely thing, that someone is psychically controlling a Tic Tac. That's the more likely option, apparently. I mean, that's just crazy to me.
Also doesn't discount the possibility that the other objects that were being seen in the area by my friend Kevin Day and witnessed by multiple people on the USS Princeton and the USS Nimitz, it doesn't rule out the possibility that those other objects that were being seen at somewhere between 28,000 to 80,000 feet were of non-human origin. I think it's highly implausible that they were all Lockheed Martin objects. What I am told is that that day there was a very stupid blue-on-blue attempt, an attempt to test technology that was in the possession of Lockheed Martin against a carrier battle fleet. And this came about as a result of a conversation I had with somebody who pointed out to me and reiterated to me something I've written about in my book, that when Kevin Day had a conversation with I think the admiral or the captain on the USS Nimitz, he showed no surprise at all about the incursion by this anomalous object. You have to ask yourself, why?
Because they planned it. That's why. It's funny how, like, you know, a lot of people argue that they say, like, why would they test this Tic Tac in and around their own military? Like, it's dangerous. Why would they do that? You hear that argument a lot. But then, like, in the same breath, you've got the Wall Street Journal going, oh, yeah, that big giant red ball at Malmstrom Air Force Base in 1967 at the 10 nuclear silos. Yeah, that was just us. We were just hazing them. We were just testing a few things on the guys that can destroy the entire world if their finger slips. Yeah, we were just playing a few tricks on them. So it's kind of like, what's the story, bro? Is that a thing that you do, or is it not? Like, it's, you know, you can't have it both ways. Yoza. And, you know, your name isn't even Yoza anymore. It's something else, but I just remember your picture because I just got that memory with those kind of things. She says, great show last night, Josh Gray Part 2. Thank you very much. If you haven't seen it, Part 2 of the podcast came out last night, and with Gray, talking about Skywatcher, talking about Ross, talking about some pretty interesting things. And, you know, he copped a lot of shit. I copped a lot of shit just for doing an interview with him. But when I see that, I'm just like, oh, okay, so he's saying things that people don't want to be said. So the things that he says activate the bots on Twitter. Therefore, he's probably over the target to some degree. I really enjoyed, what was that? I really enjoyed my interview with him. And going back and doing the editing, it only kind of reaffirmed how I felt about it. Even as I was editing it, I was hearing things that I kind of missed in the interview. And I was like, damn, this guy, I really do think there is a lot to what he's saying, 100%. A lot of people are asking about the Megan Orada fan club. Look, I'm sure there is a Megan Orada fan club because there's a fan club for any breathing female that exists on the internet. So yes, I'm sure there is a Megan Orada fan club. All right, I think we can keep going with this one. We're getting on. This is the bigger part. So we're going to start talking about Project Bluebeam now. And I thought Ross's answer here was really interesting because he kind of contradicts himself, I think, in a way. But let's hear what he has to say. She's happily married, bro. Oh, damn it. There you go. Disbanding the fan club.
We have Proctor Hopkins reaching out to us on X. Has Ross looked into the Project Bluebeam claims and how they could be eerily echoing current events?
Project Bluebeam, the most hoary chestnut in all of the UFO conspiracy theories.
What is a hoary chestnut?
So, Project Bluebeam, I'm assuming this is the one you're talking about. There was a Canadian guy, I think he's now passed, called Serge Monast, and he came up with this wacky conspiracy theory, and I do think it's wacky because it didn't happen when he said it was going to happen. I think he said it was going to happen in 1995 or 1996, and essentially it was a staged fake alien invasion leading to eventually a Luciferian conspiracy to take over the whole world in some kind of authoritarian world government. He wrote a book called Project Bluebeam.
Yeah, that all just sounds like a conspiracy, right? No one's trying to take over the world with a one world government. What a crazy, silly thing to say, right?
And the really cool thing is NASA was the villain. NASA,
oh, that's just crazy. NASA, the people who absolutely told the truth about going to the moon and then deleted the technology to do it? No. They wouldn't be the villain.
Was leading this one world conspiracy. And look, frankly, I think the claims of Serge Monast about Project Bluebeam are a load of hogwash.
Yeah, we lost the calculator that was as powerful as we needed to go to the moon. Yeah, we lost it. And we just couldn't build another calculator.
I'm not saying that the idea of a potential staged alien invasion threat isn't a possible stunt that might.
This is where it gets kind of interesting, okay? Because I feel like he kind of backflips on what he's saying, or at least what he's saying doesn't make sense. Because he's basically writing off the Serge Monast Project Bluebeam theory because it didn't happen when he said it would, which I just think is so silly, right? Because the idea in itself is still a possibility. Just because it doesn't happen when if Serge Monast didn't put a date on it, I mean, he kind of just did himself in by putting a date on it. The theory is very alive, I think. But anyway, I'll let Ross finish.
Might be pulled by somebody in the gatekeeper group that are protecting this legacy program. That's long been a completely separate speculation by people like Dr. Stephen Greer from the Disclosure Project. And it goes back to, I think, claims made by a lovely woman called Carol Rosen, who I've had the privilege of meeting, who was Werner von Braun's assistant.
Yep.
And a lot of people have tried to point holes in Carol Rosen's claims, but essentially Carol was a PA to Dr. Werner von Braun, the former SS officer who was a Nazi, who was brought out under Project Paperclip, and incredibly was protected and given the opportunity to run the entire Apollo space program. And one of the things about Werner von Braun is he...
Real normal shit, right? Go have an entire world war with someone, go to kill millions of your own people to fight someone, and then when the war finishes, come on over here. You know what? You can be in charge of our space program. Yeah. Guy that we were just trying to kill and let millions of our own people die to take out. Yeah, you know what? You're hired. I like you. Come and run the space program. Real normal shit.
Always said that he was reluctantly dragooned into the SS, so I should make that point. But essentially, I think he was, at the end of his life, very skeptical and concerned about what he believed the US government was doing with its knowledge, allegedly, of non-human intelligences. And he allegedly confided to Carol Rosen, who's told me about this, and she's told many people about this, including Dr. Stephen Greer, who was the first to break it, that there was going to be some kind of staged alien invasion as an excuse to impose authoritarian control on the planet, and that they would use possibly holograms and projected images of UAPs craft as a way of restraining the public and controlling public opinion. Is it true? I don't know. I've got no idea. I mean, it's an allegation that's been around for years. I actually don't doubt that Werner von Braun did say it to Carol Rosen. A lot of people have tried to point holes in Carol, but I find her credible.
100%. I've played her clip on the channel that many times, but to me, she is obviously telling the truth. Obviously, I can't prove that, and I don't know for sure. But if I had to gun to my head, is she telling the truth? Yes, I would comfortably say yes. You can just kind of tell with some people, right? That when they're being honest, what are their motives to lie? She doesn't really have one. She hasn't made any money. She's not writing a book. The way she speaks is very honest. She's clearly telling the truth. So it's why? Why would they say that? And if Werner von Braun said that to her in the 70s, and Ross is yeah, I believe it. But then he's but that Serge Monash guy who said the same thing, he's a conspiracy theorist because he put a date on it and the date was wrong. So everything he said is just, what did he call it? What was that word he said at the start? I just don't get why that's ridiculous, but he believes what Carol Rosen is saying and is saying that, yeah, that's a possibility. It's bro, Serge Monash was saying the same thing. They're saying the same thing. Hoary nut? Yeah, something like that.
I think she's telling the truth. I do think Werner von Braun was worried about the potential misuse of the technologies that he allegedly became aware of that the United States was in control of. As allegedly, my friend and informant Uri Geller, the famous psychic, told me in a previous reality check interview, he says that he was shown alien bodies by Dr. Werner von Braun. I just don't think all of this is complete hogwash. There's some truth in this. I just wish I knew what it was. So, yes, I think Project Bluebeam, as proposed by a Canadian guy called Serge Monash probably 30, 40 years ago, is a load of bollocks because it never happened. I think he said it was going to happen in the mid-90s. It didn't happen. But I think that claims that the people responsible for the legacy program might try and stage some kind of stunt, look, I wouldn't put it past. If Richard Dolan is right, if our friend Richard Dolan, the noted UAP academic, is right, that there is some kind of breakaway civilization on this planet that essentially is using this technology to gain some kind of superior advantage to the detriment of the rest of humankind, then I guess it's not at all inconceivable that they might try and use some kind of fascist takeover by using a stunt such as a fake alien invasion. I don't think we should rule that out. I mean, the bottom line is this is why Congress needs to reassert control over the legacy program and stop pussyfooting around and accepting.
Get it?
It needs to start digging. What really worries me is the supine, docile way that so many politicians are approaching this issue. They still titter and giggle nervously when they're asked about the UAP issue, and yet the US government has admitted that UAPs are real. There is enough on the public record now, not least since our interview with James Fox and the revelations that he's made about a likely recovery of an alien spacecraft and an alien being or beings, to raise the very serious likelihood that the United States is lying through its teeth about what it has recovered.
And so, that's what we're going to be looking at.
Asking hard.
That's what we're going to be looking at later in the show. And look, we give Ross a bit of a hard time sometimes, and I think that's okay. You can give people a hard time. But I also think credit where credit's due. As much as we can be a little bit sus on Ross and the people he interviews and whatever, he, to his credit, he does always keep his foot on the throat of pressuring the government to do more and say more. That is one thing he does always do. And I think that, that not many other people are sort of saying the same thing in that way, I don't think. At least in the way that he does it. And also, I've just noticed that he has a American flag in the background. That's kind of random. Why is that? And it looks like it's got some some big black eyes on it or something. What is that? Does anyone know? Is that from something? Taris has just gifted. He's just thrown out 3 5-packs. 3 5-packs to the crowd. He's just full of generosity today. My man, thank you very much. And let's get some love in the chat for 15 new freaks. And Thomas says, suggest to watch Pavel about Cybertruck Classified and Professor Simon and Nick Pope about hybrid war. And you got the answer to the mystery drones. Rock on. Interesting, my friend. Thank you very much. And, I think the whole Cybertruck bomber thing, I personally think that there's something to what he wrote. Why? Because it got swept under the rug and nobody wanted to talk about it again. To me, it's like, okay, that's weird. Green Beret Special Forces soldier just apparently just blows himself up, says some wild shit, and don't talk about it. He's just crazy. Yeah, probably not, actually. I think maybe the people who have been lying to us for a century are probably still lying to us. Just a guess. Just hazarding a guess, little stab in the dark.
Questions about what the intentions are of the people that are aware of this program, and are they planning some kind of a stunt? I don't think we should rule that out. And I think maybe the fact that Carol Rosen says she was told this by Werner von Braun, and that other people have speculated about some kind of fake alien invasion using recovered craft, maybe we should take this a little bit more seriously. And maybe this is another reason why government should actually be looking at this as some kind of national security imperative, rather than tittering into their coffee cups and nervously looking in the other direction when people say, hey, listen, what about this UAP issue? And this is why you, the public, need to make it clear to your elected representatives that you're not going to put up anymore with this kind of nonsensical ridicule response to the subject of UAPs. It just doesn't wash anymore. This is a serious subject for investigation, and it's worthy of investigation by our politicians and our executive representatives.
Okay.
Again, fair play to Ross. That's what I mean. Whether you think he's misled or whatever, he might be, but he does keep the pressure on, and he does encourage people to put the pressure on. So, I think that is a good thing. But, in regards to the Cybertruck bomber, I haven't seen Pavel's video on it just yet. I will check it out. But, talking about saying that China has this technology, America has this technology, and it's mutually assured destruction. I don't know, man. It makes you wonder. It makes you wonder, I think that there are wars happening that we are not told about. I think there is international, maybe not skirmishing, but I don't know the right word. Kind of jostling for position, beating your chest. These kind of things. I think so much of this kind of stuff happens in a realm that we are not even privy to. And, I think even Matthew Brown said something like that, to be honest. I think he said there are so many things that happen that just we aren't even told about. Posturing. Yes, Susie. That's definitely the kind of word. Aggressive posturing, flexing of muscles with the kind of technology that we aren't told about. And I think that the drones could have been that. They could have been China. Why did they not get shot down? Why did they not get shot down? How is it not embarrassing to be to consistently be hey, there are these unknown drones in our sky for days, for weeks, for months. We had to shut our airports down. We still can't get rid of these drones. Okay, what the fuck? Yeah, do you have control of your airspace or not? No wonder you, what is going on? I don't know, man. I don't know. I really do think that there is non-human intelligence and UFOs and all this kind of stuff, but I do think that is also like the perfect cover-up and distraction for like wild technology and just general manipulation and psyop material. So like, I'm not saying it's all bullshit at all, but I do think it gets hijacked. Like, who was talking about it recently, saying that like everything is a psyop because anything that becomes popular or anything that kind of seeps into the zeitgeist and is like a, talking point, because of that, it is like the perfect ripe fruit for intelligence to infiltrate and spin and use to whatever means is necessary. So like literally anything that becomes big, it's just like, okay, now it's a psyop because of its popularity. Its popularity makes it a tool to manipulate people. I think general AI is real. Like, oh, you mean artificial general intelligence? I wouldn't be surprised. I've always said, if we get like ChatGPT is pretty powerful. It's pretty powerful. We get it for free. If we get ChatGPT for free, the people who are pulling the strings in the world is probably an actual robot. If we're getting ChatGPT for free, then they must not only have artificial general intelligence, they probably are artificial general intelligence. A la Peter Thiel, a la Elon Musk, Sam Altman and his pen collection, Mark Zuckerberg and his recreational coffees, and his bow hunting, but that he can't remember what the bow is, and his system upgrade to a tall tee wearing jujitsu guy, okay? They're all AI. I'm joking, but I am a little bit serious. Okay, let's get on to the next one. This is the headline for today. This is Joe Rogan talking about his dream experience. Now, this is interesting because I certainly have. I know a lot of you guys have, and we may actually read one of them today. But I think we've all had some dreams that don't really feel like dreams, and you can't really explain why, but they just feel different. I've certainly had one, probably more than one, but there's one that really sticks out to me. And Joe Rogan has apparently had one involving something that looks non-human. And we've got a clip here, and now it is Joe Rogan, so I will probably have to, interrupt and pause that a little bit because they're savages. But this was from the recent podcast with, oh my God, who is it? Brett Weinstein. Yeah, that's who it is. This was straight out of the bat. The intro music is still playing, and you can tell that this rattled Joe. And I think it's great that he had a podcast the next day, because I feel like often when you have these kind of dreams, the intensity of them is still very like raw and visceral when you wake up, that you retell it with like this kind of emotion, and like some of that feeling of it is still there. And I feel like you can see that in Joe when he's retelling the story. Whereas if you, after a few days, it kind of wears off a little bit, and I feel like you tend to retell it like it's just a bit of a crazy dream, but you can tell he's still a bit rattled from what his dream was. So let's check this out.
So I was telling you before we get started that I had the most bizarre dream I've ever had in my life last night. The most realistic and most bizarre dream. And it's so hard to try to explain how strange this was. But I was in some weird corridor that looked like a building but was odd. Very strange. And I was encountering these beings that looked like people but very different. They were very thin, and they were slightly on the tall side. And they had big heads, like larger than normal, with larger than normal eyes. But they looked like people, and they were playful, and they were scaring me. They scared me, and then they joked around, like we were just joking around. It was the most realistic dream I've ever had in my life.
You can tell when he's explaining this, the way he's like looking away, it's like he's reimagining it. And you can see that like he's still a little bit rattled, and he's talking about tall and slender with big heads. Like those three things are probably some of the most common things that we hear about in these weird entity encounters. And it's very similar to what I'm going to read after this. I was going to mention something else, but I've lost it. Let's keep going.
And I woke up and I could not go back I had to stay up. I got up at 3:30 in the morning and I just went to the gym and I worked out for a couple hours. And I was like, what the fuck was that? But it was very bizarre in that there was communication going on. It was like, God, I want to read into this because I know it's just a dream, but it was like, get comfortable with this.
You should read into it because it's a dream. So it doesn't make it right, but your subconscious is trying to tell you about something, and the fact that it felt very, very important means your subconscious thinks it's very, very important.
I woke up, I mean, I was tired, man. When I went to bed, I was tired. I was falling asleep watching TV. I went to bed at like 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, like beat down. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to get some sleep. It's had a long week, a lot of activities, workouts, this, that, the other. Tired. 3:30 in the morning, after whatever.
Why is it always at like 3:30 and 3 a.m.? What is that called? Like witching hour? I've definitely had times where I've woken up, and I can't say that I've woken up from a dream, at least I can remember, but I've definitely multiple times in my life woken up at like 3 to 3:30 in that time, and like it's like a jolt awake, heart is like going, and I'm like, I feel uncomfortable. I feel like something has like slapped me awake, and I'm like, I don't feel like I was resting. I feel like I was panicking, or I feel like I was just not having a good time. Not as like, you know what I mean? It's weird. It's weird to wake up from sleeping with a fast heartbeat and like being like kind of anxious. I've definitely had that. What is it? What did Joe say somewhere around here?
God, I want to read. There was communication going on. It was and I was like, what up? I got up at 3:30 in the morning.
I missed it.
Tired. I was falling asleep. I'm going to get some sleep. It was had a long week, a lot of activities, workouts, this, that, the other. Tired. 3:30 in the morning, after whatever this was, woke me up so much that I just laid in bed for like another hour. And I was like, there is no way I'm going to sleep. I'm up forever. And then I just went and worked out. I worked out, and I was hoping I would be exhausted after I worked out and I'd be able to relax. But it was like a couple hours after that that I laid down and I took a nap for an hour before I came here.
Ali says cortisol surge at 3 a.m. and gives those symptoms. But why would your cortisol be surging at 3 a.m.? Like, surely that can't be a thing. People's cortisol just doesn't randomly spike at 3 a.m. It doesn't follow a clock. Like, I don't understand what you mean by that. Yes, very rattled. I mean, if you're getting up at 3:30 a.m. and going to the gym, something ain't right. You're obviously like peaking. You know you're not getting back to sleep, and it's like, fuck, I got to do something. You got to like take your mind off it. And why 3 a.m.? How does that work? Yeah, exactly. Lots of people seem to experience this like jolting awake. Yeah, I don't know what that is. I've had some weird times jolting awake, and I've felt like my body is like vibrating and my heart is going super fast. And it's like, why? I thought I was asleep, but it feels like I've just ran 100 meters. Or sprinted 100 meters. It's kind of like, what is going on?
Question for you.
Yeah.
Did you see a video, I think it was yesterday, maybe it was the day before, of some Chinese robots that seem to be across on our side of the uncanny valley, that they walk with a gait that feels very human? Did you see that?
No, I haven't seen that. Is that the latest?
I don't know. I've seen it a few times in the last couple of days. It sort of sounded to me like your dream might have been responsive, you know?
These things felt very organic.
Stop trying to put a logical explanation on things, Brett. Listen up, Brett. Joe encountered alien beings in the astral plane. Shut up with your logical dream reasoning.
Whatever this was, it felt like living organic beings that were like us. There was also a water element. It was hard to understand what the water element of it was, but there was some sort of an indication that there was water and that there was a protection from you going out into the water. But if you did go into the water, there's a bunch of predators in the water. But they weren't like, it wasn't like sharks. It was reptile, like crocodile.
Oh, Joe just said the R word. Has Joe been watching Reptile Week?
Water. But they weren't like, it wasn't like sharks. It was.
What were they?
Reptile, like.
That. He absolutely went to say reptilians. He was not. He didn't go to say reptiles. I heard the A roll out of the I. He literally went to say reptilians, and he was like, hang on a sec, I'm Joe Rogan on the Joe Rogan podcast. I should probably not say that. Yep. He absolutely went to say they kind of looked reptilian. One more time.
That there was water and that there was a protection from you going out into the water. But if you did go into the water, there's a bunch of predators in the water. But they weren't like, it wasn't like sharks. It was reptile, like crocodile type things.
Yep.
That were in the water, and that they had been like feeding them and keeping them calm and like keeping them away. But
yeah,
whatever
he did.
These beings were in my dream, they were like what humans could eventually be. That's what it felt like. If it didn't feel like a person, but like, you know, like I don't feel like a monkey. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it was like that. It was very, very realistic. Like there was communication going on. And I was really freaked out. And they were fucking with me to lighten me up because I was freaked out. They're like, ah. And then they were like this, like, calm down, like, relax.
That detail is honestly pretty wild, though, as well. Like, to have some kind of coherent exchange like that in any dream, I think is, well, I guess everyone's different. I'm interested to see what you guys think. Do you feel like having very coherent exchanges like that is sort of rare? Like, I feel like normally in dreams, if you do communicate with someone or something, it's usually like super abstract, or it's very like limited and not like complex and like it's not drawn out and complicated. It's usually like words and feelings, and sometimes it's like through images. You know, it's very weird. But to have this kind of like, you know, almost like you're talking to someone is weird. And you know what? The one dream that I remember that I had that felt different, it was the same as that. I had full on like talking communication with someone, and someone who I knew who had passed away. And it was just so strange. It just felt so weird. And I remember I woke up being like, whoa, straight away, like Joe said, like you don't wake up going, oh, that was a spooky dream. You kind of wake up being like, whoa, that was different.
It was so realistic. It was so realistic that when it was over, I wasn't sure what happened. Like, it wasn't like, whoa, what a fucked up dream. It was like, that was different. That was a different one.
That was a different one. There you go. That was a different one. So I think what I've actually got here is, and I don't know if this person still watches my channel. I have an email here. Oh man, my mouse is on the way out. I have an email here that someone wrote me. Oh my, it's okay. Don't get upset. It's just a mouse. Ross gasp. Okay. It's just a mouse. I have an email here that was written to me on the 11th of March. Okay. This is someone sharing their experience with me. And I think that they might still watch the channel. I feel like I still see their name around sometimes. So I'm not going to say who it is because I believe they wanted to remain anonymous. And from my memory, I always remembered this story. And when I spoke to him, I sort of said I would, if I can find the time to report on it or talk about it, I will. And I just kind of never did. Not because I didn't want to, but just, the timing sort of never came, that the topics never popped up, that it felt relevant. And then, time just goes on or whatever. But the story in itself always, I always remembered it because I thought it was interesting. He made some AI pictures to accompany it as well to try and help tell his story. And when Joe explained the beings that he saw in his dream, from memory, reminded me a lot about this one. Now, I didn't have the time to reread it again before the stream started. But I think I'm going to read it anyway, because I'm pretty sure they are similar. But also, this guy's waited 6, 7, 8 months to get his story on the show. So you know what? We're going to do it. And I'm going to show you the pictures as well. And I think this will just be a cool opportunity for anyone to kind of share their experience with some crazy dreams. And I actually thought that I want to do a show soon, probably this week actually, where I read some of your stories. Now, actually, the first thing I was going to do is I'm going to go through some of your shapeshifter stories, because I got a lot of comments on the shapeshifter video that I did recently this week with people just telling their experiences, and I thought it'd be fun to read them. But we should also do one with dreams as well, and I want to read some of your crazy dreams. So this is a call out to do that. josh.polarity@gmail.com. You can find my email just in my About Me here on YouTube. If you want to submit a dream or a story that we can, I won't guarantee they'll all get read depending on how many we get. You can remain anonymous if you want to. Just let me know in the email, but we will do that. But anyway, I'm going to read this. Okay, this is from an anonymous viewer on the channel that was sent to me on the 11th of March this year. And I'll show the photos as they become relevant. There's only 2. Okay. In a nutshell, I have a vivid memory of a room that was full of these eggs and the atmosphere was off. I can go into more detail if you want, but as context, I guess, like I said I was very young when I first had this memory, and over my life, I have mentioned it to multiple people, and in more recent years, as it is always in the back of my head. I've started trying to get ChatGPT to help me find the source of it. I used to always assume this memory was one of 2 options. Now, I'm not crazy, so keep an open mind either. Okay, look, this person's English and grammar isn't the best, so if I sound retarded, blame the email. I'm just reading it as it's written, okay? Okay. So keep an open mind. Either it was something that happened before I was born, or it was something else that my younger mind has put together. I was born in the late 70s, if that helps. I do like my conspiracies, though, so I've always dabbled with the idea that maybe I got to see something no one else did, but have remained open to the idea that it's something less fun. Anyway, all my web searches over the years and all the attempts I've made with the GPT's help as it gets updated, I've found absolutely no indication that this could be from TV, radio, or some other source. The thing is, though, I remember it from the reference point of my eyes, not from a third-person viewpoint previously. Yep, forgot his full stop. Not from a third-person viewpoint. Previously, I'd spoken to just one other person who did not immediately assume I was crazy, but on top of that, he described the room to me before I told him what was in it. Not that he was psychic or anything, but he had claimed to have seen a room like it and said that there was dozens of them like it. Anyway, when this Jake Barber business happened, then the other one in the cave that we touched on the YouTube comments, I was completely thrown off. All of a sudden, there was a strong possibility that my memory was real, and that the egg on the end of the rope could very well have been something I've seen before and not in my imagination. So as you guys can realize, this is obviously in the waking months of the Jake Barber egg retrieval video that has kind of triggered him to actually come forward with his thoughts. At this point, I might as well give you the whole story. I've tried to generate some AI images of the room, but it always gets the details wrong. But with the help images I've generated, I should be able to paint you a better picture of what I've seen. And honestly, I'd like to hear your thoughts on it. And who knows, you might know something that could relate. Okay, so he kind of gave a massive preamble before he actually told me the story. Okay, this is the second email. I'm just going to read from here now. Okay, to the point. I have this memory of a very big room, seemingly endless. The roof is low and plain. The floor is smooth cement, and the walls seemingly do not exist because the floor and the roof just fade into darkness in the distance. I'm with a group of people. There is other children around my age, some older, some younger. In hindsight, all of them were under maybe 8 to 10 years old, with one of the youngest being not much younger than I was, but I don't know my age. It feels like it was relative to the age I was when I first had the memory, which would put me between 2 and 4. It was the early 80s. So I guess, okay, I should probably delineate that this was actually this guy thinks that this is a memory that he has rather than a dream, but I feel like potentially either, they're kind of in the same boat. Aside from the other children, there were 2 adults. They were wearing the classic white drapey robes that you would imagine when thinking about angels or cult leaders, I guess. The children were wearing smaller clothes, but they were old and tattered. The atmosphere around the 2 adults felt cold, like there was an unspoken rule. You do not speak to them, you have to stay around them, but not too close. Stay quiet, don't do anything to direct attention to yourself. It was eerie and unpleasant. Not dangerous, it just felt like if you spoke to them, you would get in trouble. It was kind of an empty feeling, but the potential to be scary. Even thinking about it today, I get an uneasy feeling about the adults. All right, I'm going to show one of the pictures now. So this is his best depiction using AI of the room in this memory of his. They were old, like almost elderly looking, but they were tall and seemingly fit. They stood up straight and had the body language of a younger person. They stayed in pairs and would talk to each other quietly. They also had what seemed to be a clipboard or something similar they kept looking at and pointing to as they spoke. The room was very poorly lit, and just meters away there was giant egg-shaped objects standing upright with the fat side at the bottom and the skinny side at the top. It was very large and it went up to almost touch the roof. There was only about 2 foot or 3 foot between the top of the egg and the roof. The only light in the entire seemingly endless room seemed to be coming from the egg, but I don't think the egg was glowing, but it was being lit up from an external source that I do not remember seeing. But unlike my AI recreations, the light was not coming from the roof. The roof and the surrounding ambient light seemed to be reflecting off the eggs. The rest of the room was filled with eggs, a lot of them. They were all standing upright. They were all lit up, but nothing was bright. The eggs were all well lit, but the light surrounding them was dim. It was enough to see people around you and move around, but the light was not bright enough to light the area up between the eggs. If you can picture it, the egg is lit up and you can see like a hot spot around the immediate area and it fades to darkness. And in the distance, there is another egg that is lit up and you can see its immediate surrounds and another and another. So like very specific details here, like extremely specific about the lighting scenario. So, basically if you picture the room here, but kind of imagine the roof just being dark black where you can't really see the ceiling and the light is sort of coming from the eggs, but the eggs themselves aren't glowing. That's how I'm interpreting it anyway. The rest of the room was filled with eggs, a lot of them. They were all standing upright. They were all lit up, but nothing was bright. No, we've done that bit, sorry. Okay, all the eggs, they weren't in a line. They were spread out all over the place, and there was a good distance apart, much further than in my AI image. The AI could not comprehend groups of people or space the eggs far apart. Some of the eggs were open, but most of them were closed, and some of the others also had groups of people around them. The same thing, a handful of children and 2 adults wearing white drapes. I hope that paints an image for you for the way I'm seeing it as I type this. Anyway, these eggs looked like what we've seen recently, which is why I'm telling you this in the first place. Just big white eggs, plain and smooth looking. When that report came out, the first one, I could not believe what I was seeing. It was like a revelation. Something was going on with the adults and the egg. Everyone was scared except the adults. And some of them knew what was coming. The adults had moved over closer to the kids and were looking at their clipboard, and they chose one of the children. It was a blonde girl that I felt like I had a connection of some sort with. They took her from the group and over to the egg. There was this feeling of sadness, like loss and helplessness, and the egg began to open up. It started splitting into 4 from the top down, opening up like a flower, another thing that the AI couldn't comprehend. And the girl was put inside of it. The floor was padded, and I don't remember words, but she was instructed to sit in the middle. The egg then closed up again. It started to get bright and sent out a pulse of light or energy out of the top and went back to normal. And then things went back to the way they were. No one wanted to draw attention to themselves, avoid the adults, and the girl was gone. When I was younger, I used to think maybe this was our souls being transported into our bodies through this out time. It was her time to be born, and maybe the connection we had was because she was a soulmate and we were meant to find each other. But now, nearly half a century old, I'm losing hope in that theory. There is more. I'm just going to show you guys the other picture that he gave me. Very similar. But these are the only two images that I got. Now we have theories being thrown around about the bloody reptilians harvesting souls and sending them back to Earth to lead miserable lives. I hope I just went crazy at a young age, lol. After seeing the Jake Barber egg thing though, that has really made me start questioning the viability of my memory. As I grew up, I started thinking it's just one of those things, but suddenly the world is different. There is things happening that fill in the blanks, and a lot more conspiracies are starting to look more plausible. I just don't know what to think about it anymore. It brings more questions, but in ways makes me feel a little less crazy. Anyway, the email is long enough. If you want to share your thoughts or ask me something, yeah, and then he just kind of wrapped up there. Now, I did ask him some questions, and he wrote a decent, like a pretty similar length reply. Would you guys like to hear it? Or like, were you finding that engaging and interesting? If not, that's okay. You can tell me to go fuck myself and we can get on to the next clip. But if you guys want to hear the questions and the answers, I'm happy to go through them with you guys. And by the way, for anyone who's like, oh, you're ignoring me, don't ignore my email. So imagine this, but like 20, kind of like every couple of days. Forgive me. Okay, forgive me. Okay. All right, people are interested. Cool. Let's keep going then. I'll write what I said back. I just said, I got a couple of questions. Did the elders in white robes look human? Was there any distinguishable features? When the girl got inside the egg and the beam of light shot up, what happened to the egg? Did that disappear? How did you know the girl was gone? How vivid are these memories / dreams? And is this just a singular memory dream or something that happened more than once? Yes. And that's all I said. And then he said, in response to, did the elders in white robes look human? Were there any distinguishable features? He said, the elders looked human, but their skin was sort of loose and hanging under their neck, like you would see on a very old person. They were quite tall, not in an inhuman way, but just unusually tall, and they stood straight like they had really good posture, except their neck was positioned weird, sort of like if you were to push your head forwards and tilt it back, so that your chin is kind of pointing out more, with your neck, not your jaw. That and the kind of saggy skin were defining features. Maybe their necks were longer than normal or something that gave the appearance, but generally they just looked like old tall people. But saying that there was just something off about them that didn't seem human. It was almost like a sense of feeling they projected, but they could have been some form of fear as well. When the girl got inside the egg and the beam of light shot up, what happened to the egg? Did that disappear? How did you know the girl was gone? When the egg closed up, there was a porthole on the side of the egg. It was round, like you would see in a submarine, but I don't think it was a window, so to speak. I don't remember seeing it before it opened up. I think that section of the egg just became translucent. Okay. Sorry. The reason why I started going AWOL as I was reading that is because that sounds exactly like what Mac Mazda talked about when I interviewed him. Let me pull that up, Jamie. Okay, think, Josh. Think. Where is the Mac Mazda folder? Yep, there it is. Your boy was organized when he did that one. He labeled it. He labeled this shit. And that means we can pull it up right now, Jamie. Yep. Thank you. You guys remember the interview I did with Mac Mazda? Okay, this is something that Mac saw. Him and his brother saw this in... Oh, gosh, where was he from? He's Persian. So I want to say like Iran, but I'm not 100% sure. Anyway, him and his brother were out on a balcony and saw something, and you can see here this is dated 12th of the 4th, 1991, up in the corner. Him and his brother both saw this on the balcony and ran inside, screaming to their mum that they just saw something. And their mum split them up into their bedrooms and said, "Draw me what you just saw." And these are the scanned images of what they drew. And I don't know when I interviewed Mac. It honestly would have been around this time, but I never made this connection about the porthole and the egg-shaped thing. But Mac said that it was an egg-shaped kind of, or more like, an American football kind of shape. And it had this thing with like a 3-fingered wave through the porthole. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. We can, let's look, you know what? We can get a little Schizo's mood board happening tonight. Why not? We can just place that one over here. And let's jump back to this one. And there's more, by the way. I'll keep reading. Okay. So where were we on that one? Yeah, okay. So there was more to that. So he said, I don't think it was a window, so to speak. I don't remember seeing it before it opened up. I think that section of the egg just became translucent. Then he says, when the egg was closed up and the window was there, you could see light filling the inside of the egg. It just kept getting brighter on the inside until you could no longer see in it, and it was the same white light that went up, and after the surge or the energy burst or whatever you want to call it, the egg was empty. It's funny you should ask if the egg vanished or moved or not. I remember it staying in place. But after I seen the Jake Barber thing, I started trying to remember if the egg actually left the room. But I don't think it did. I'm pretty sure it just stayed in place. This is also where my memory starts to fade. I remember looking around the group after it was over, and then that's all I get. Everything else is dark after that. Then I said, how vivid are these memories, dreams? Is this just a singular memory or something that happened more than once? And he said, the memory of this is extremely vivid for the most part. There is foggy bits, but standing in the group before anything happens and when I looked over at the adults and around the room is very vivid. The girl was carrying something like a teddy or some sort of stuffed animal, and I remember her hair was a mess, like she just woke up. It was dirty blonde, straight but messy, and sort of clumped together, like after you've been to the beach and it's all salty. I think that the vividness and the feeling of attachment is why I've held onto it for such a long time. I don't remember how I got there. The first part of my memory is being in the group and looking over towards the adults. The feeling like I shouldn't be looking at them. It begins to get foggy when the egg is powering up, for lack of a better way of putting it. And then, yeah, the rest of it was basically me just asking if he wants to be kept anonymous. Yeah. Yeah, there is a little bit more to that, but it's a different kind of story. Maybe when we do the other stream, I'll finish this off and kind of explain the rest of it. But there's kind of like another part to this that isn't really related to the egg. And shout out to this guy. So I never replied to that email, and he got a little bit upset with me after a couple of months. Took it a little bit personally, but brother, if you are watching still, by any chance, if you don't hate me now, as I said, it's not personal. It was just. I'm juggling lots of things here, but I appreciate you reaching out to me and being comfortable enough to share your story. And I do think if you guys enjoyed that, we can send me if you've got weird memories, if you've got dreams that feel visceral, that feel real, and if you've got just any experiences that you want to share. I do feel like that could be a fun thing to discuss, not just in like a storytelling sense, but it would be cool to share people's experiences, because you never know who's listening, right? And there might be someone out there who goes, what the hell? I've had that exact same dream, memory, or something similar. Like in this instance where we read that and we realized that Mac Mazda also saw an egg with a weird little porthole shape on it as well. You know, there are weird little dots that connect all over the place when you get into this stuff. So if you do want to do that, josh.polarity@gmail.com is my email. And, if I don't get back to you, it doesn't mean I won't read it. It might just mean I'm collecting them and we'll read them on stream. But if you want to be kept anonymous or not, just let me know in the comments. And if you don't say anything, I'll just assume you don't care and I'll just shout out your name. That's that. I think that's that part. That's the Joe Rogan bit done, talking about spooky dreams. I think we can get into our moment of contact section now, which is James Fox also spoke on Ross Coulthard's show the other day about his, I guess, part 2 of Moment of Contact, which I'm honestly really looking forward to. I think this is going to be far more interesting than The Age of Disclosure. And I think it's going to be more impactful. And I think this story is more, there's more to it. There's more yolk in the egg, if you will. So we're going to hear a little bit of their interview, but we're also going to listen to the little clip that we got given of the doctor that saw the alien being in Virginia. And I think that this guy is extremely compelling. Here we go.
I mean, the thing that blows me away about what you're revealing here, and there's much more to come, is you've done layered quality investigative journalism. This is not something that's easily debunked. You have multiple corroborative witnesses supporting a consistent claim.
I have the head neurosurgeon that runs the entire department at Regional Hospital today, willing to take a public lie detector test and testify that everything he's saying is true. And then there are other doctors that we're talking to now. Like
Did he lose his job because you did the interview, or was it okay?
It was tumultuous, but he was so in demand that they couldn't, he's the lead guy. So they couldn't shoot themselves in the foot. So it's been rough. It's a bit of a rough ride with him. But he said to me, he goes, James, I don't care the consequences. The world needs to know this happened. This being that I encountered communicated with me telepathically. It was a highly advanced intelligence, way more than anything he's ever seen here on Earth. He called it almost like an angel. And it was, despite the fact that it sends chills. Like, despite the fact that it was in captivity, it had control of the room.
I love James Fox's passion, right? You can't knock the man's passion at all. And this guy here, he just said that normally when people speak out about this stuff, they lose their job. This guy didn't, because he's like the top doctor, like the top surgeon or whatever. Like, he's so high up that they were like, oh fuck, like we can't really get rid of this guy. If we get rid of him, it all falls to pieces. Like, he is the top dog. And he's just like, I don't care. I'm just going to say it because it is what it is. So let's listen to that now.
Redacted.
Just kidding. We're going to go through a couple of super chats first. Thomas, no, we've done that one. We've done that one. Kerry says, I think they are testing EMP drone neutralizing weapons. Yeah, I'm sure they are. And more, Kerry. Brad James, $2. Thank you very much, Brad, my man. Rusty's gifted a membership. Rusty, thank you. Get some love in the chat for that little freak who's just joined us. And Maggie with a little unicorn sticker. Thank you very much, Maggie. All right, now let's actually get into it this time.
Ítalo Venturelli, estudei em São Paulo, fiz neurologia, neurocirurgia, fiz mais de 5.000 cirurgias. Só queria deixar essa mensagem que eu realmente vi. No dia fui ver como se eu tivesse ido ver um paciente, e não era um paciente, realmente era um alien, claramente um alien. O crânio era em forma de gota, os olhos em forma de gota. Eu fui ver um paciente, achando que era um humano. E eu vi ali um ser maravilhoso de um mundo que eu não conheço. Me pergunto se estava sofrendo, ele não estava sofrendo, se ele estava entendendo, ele estava entendendo. Muito calmo, muito tranquilo, olhou para mim como se entendesse tudo o que eu estava pensando. Eu acho bacana conversar isso, explicar para as pessoas que existem muito mais coisas do que a gente imagina. Para mim foi muito importante ver, porque eu vi a imensidão que tem esse universo, né? Não somos só nós aqui, nesse mundo tão maravilhoso, mas deve existir muitos outros, e aquele ser que estava ali é prova disso.
He said after about 4 minutes, he stepped out to do something in the military, burst in, I think exactly what he said, burst in, and took the bean and threatened everyone with secrecy and then left.
So the being's still alive at that point?
Yes, the being was alive and the military grabbed it and left.
And this is the Brazilian military. There's no US officers with that Brazilian military team.
There are others claiming, that they were in contact with Americans, but that was later, a little bit later.
And do we know where the being was taken from the hospital where Dr. Italo had attempted to treat it?
We unfortunately, I know that the beans ended up at Eza and definitely Campinas, but I don't know. And then, of course, we have the flight control officer who said that the USAF, which is the United States Air Force flight, came in and it didn't have authorization from the Brazilian government to land. And a higher level government official, Brazilian, walked in and said, let the plane land. So we put out a FOIA request for all air flights in America that came into Brazil from the 14th, I think it was the 13th to the 27th or something like this. And it took 3 years for our team to get that response. And it came back from the CIA. And it's like, basically, it's a national security issue. It's classified, and your request is denied.
Classic. The old national security. It's literally just like the isn't it like, it's like the royal flush card. It's like they have a royal flush card that they just have unlimited of, and it's like, it seems like I've been cornered. National security, and it's just like, I win. It's like they play fair, like they pretend like they play fair. Like, yeah, you can do freedom of information act requests. Yeah, sure, like request. You have a right to this information, and then it's like you actually pin them down on something that matters, and they're like, oh wait, no, national security. We don't want to answer that, national security. What's that? You're suing us because you sustained radiation damage while working in secret special access programs? National security. We don't like that, national security.
So let me get this very clear, James. Normally, aircraft movements like that would be the subject of very little controversy, and they would be released.
One would imagine, but what do I know? All I know is I asked, and I was told it was like national. It's in the film. You'll see it.
You found the hidden cameras in the bathroom? National security. Yep. And like, why would you not be able to release just flight logs in and out of a country over 3 days, 3 specific days? Just what planes came in and what planes came out. Not trying to ask for people's names, not trying to, look out for anything illegal, just flights, normal flights, nothing weird. National security.
So from a military source, an air traffic controller, that a US Air Force plane came into the ESA military base, very, very close to Virginia.
They came to Campinas.
Campinas. Whereabouts is that relative
Not that
to Virginia?
Far. I show it on the map in there.
Anyone in the chat ever been to Camp Penis?
I have to say it's to the south. Maybe 2 hours, 3 hours south.
James is pretending he doesn't know where Camp Penis is, but I think he knows.
But we know...
Yeah, it's not far from Virginia. Who fucking named these places? Camp Penis, just up the road from Virginia. Yep.
South of Virginia?
Your witness told you that US military helicopters were part of that deployment. Is that correct?
Multiple military witnesses, multiple people. Yes. And even the chief of police described those helicopters just recently.
Can I ask you this? This is what I never understand. Is I appreciate that the Brazilian government at the time, and probably now, is very close to the US military and the intelligence community, and for a large period of time the CIA practically ran a lot of governments in South America and Central America. But why on earth would the Brazilian government have allowed an American retrieval team to fly in and take away what is probably the first definitive evidence of a non-human intelligence?
I asked that very question to...
This is crazy.
I don't know if I should use his name. It's a name that you're familiar with. And he said, because they can.
Because they can. Bro, I'm telling you, these people do whatever the fuck they want. Hey, like Stephen Greer said, this isn't just like a the evil people at the top of the American programs. This is a transnational criminal network. And that is what makes the most sense. That they, what I think is far more likely, and I'm making a few assumptions here, and maybe the specific names and agencies aren't right, but I think the general idea of it makes a lot of sense. That this, let's just say the CIA or NASA or whatever, I think one of those agencies, maybe all of them, I don't know, one of them is like just the American arm of a larger transnational or perhaps breakaway civilization that is pulling strings across the whole world. That is what makes the most sense to me. When just like looking at all of this, removing emotion, just kind of looking at the data and like the way things are and thinking what would make the most sense here? Because none of this makes sense, obviously. What the hell is going on, right? Obviously, nothing that doesn't make sense. So if I was to try and come up with a theory that makes sense, it would be that these countries are not sovereign. They are governed by some kind of overarching entity that has its fingers or its tentacles, because it's probably non-human, in a lot of the West, all of the West, actually. Maybe other countries too, probably other countries too, but I can't really comment on them as much because I don't know. But that is the only thing that makes sense to me, because none of these countries, talking about Australia, America, the UK, Canada, etc., none of these countries seem to really like do things that has like the people in that country's best interests at heart as like a top priority. Like their top priority is like, you know, sending billions of dollars in weapons to other countries to go do more war. Meanwhile, there's like people folded in half on fentanyl on the street. Anyone want to help them? Anyone want to help the guy that looks like a deck chair? Apparently not.
Really? Yeah.
That's what he said. Yeah, we can do whatever we want.
Because the implications of this are that the Brazilian military and presumably other militaries around the world are colluding with the US military in covering this up. I mean,
I was shocked. I was shocked when I found out America was involved. I had no idea when I started this investigation. None. I was, oh my God. And not only that, they were there intimidating witnesses. I have people on camera talking about it. Yes.
So the US was going around intimidating witnesses.
No. The US wouldn't go around intimidating witnesses. Come on, Ross. Come on, James. They wouldn't do that.
Yes. You remember there was a whole family of witnesses. A whole family of witnesses. And, you know, they saw to take their account at face value, right? They lived right near where the girls saw the creature and where the capture occurred. There was a disc-shaped object quietly and silently and methodically maneuvering through the neighborhood, low. And they watched it. He goes, I watched it for 30 minutes. The whole family did. And they all talk about it.
That is such a wild part of the story, right? That after this being, that remember, a guy grabbed this being, they jumped in a car, drove it to the hospital, right? This is the only reason why any of this is public, is because these random people managed to get a hold of this being before the military. And that's why it went to just a public hospital, and a random public doctor walked in and went, what the fuck is this? And now we know about it because he's telling the story. So and then, as he said, the military came in and were like, we're going to take that, actually, and none of you are going to talk. And then they intimidate people. But like, if that didn't happen, we wouldn't know any of this. Like, this is all coming from real people. And they're saying that in that time of taking the being into a public citizen's car and taking it to a hospital, in that time, people who were in the neighborhood and around the area where this being was seen are watching a UFO fly super low and just like doing like grid patterns, like it's searching the neighborhood looking for the being. That is such a crazy detail that like I feel like doesn't get talked about as much, obviously, because the being itself is kind of the star of the story. But damn, the whole UFO searching part is nuts.
And so, and then they said the Americans came, and it's Americans with some Brazilians, and he said maybe NASA. He wasn't sure if it was NASA. They didn't know, but he said maybe NASA. And they were told, this conversation never happened. We were never here. There were the mother of the two girls got the visit. That was like one of the first times, from men in suits. And she's like, I don't know if definitively that it was the Americans, but they looked like Americans, and then one that had a strong accent that spoke Portuguese.
Didn't they offer her money?
Offered her money to tell the girls to go public on TV that they were lying and they saw it was a dog or something other. Yeah. And the mother refused.
Did the
mother
girls
refused.
ever retract the story?
Never.
Wow.
You know what that reminds me of? Getting offered money to, come out publicly and say, "Oh, it was just, it was actually a dog." You know how I freaked out and thought I saw a red-eyed demon? It was just an angry chihuahua. You know what that reminds me of? What happened after the Phoenix Lights and how like the mayor came out and was like, they brought out like the alien suit and were like, haha, yeah, aliens, yeah, right. And then like 10 years later, he was like, no, I actually saw that shit too. He came out and like tried to gaslight everyone into like thinking that they're crazy and that they're lunatics for believing in aliens. And then like 10 years later was like, no, I saw that shit too. That was fucked up. And you know what? I still feel it's funny saying this, but yeah, when I was speaking to Kirk Hammett the other day, he was telling me that Robert, the bass player in Metallica, saw the Phoenix Lights, but didn't know that it was the Phoenix Lights until Kirk told him about it. He was saying like, it's like he was saying Robert, because he said Rob and Kirk are both kind of into this kind of stuff, right? And he was saying that Robert was telling him that he was out in like Moab or something, and he was telling Kirk about this time in like the mid to late 90s where he saw this like giant thing that like blocked out the sky. And Kirk was like, wait, did it look like this? And he showed him a picture of the Phoenix Lights. And he was like, apparently he was like, dude, what the fuck? Like he didn't know about it. So he didn't know he'd seen the Phoenix Lights. But when Kirk showed him a photo, he was like, dude, that's exactly what I saw. And I just think that's so interesting, to have it corroborated like in reverse. You do like someone who saw it, but didn't sort of like know the story, which is kind of hard to imagine, right? But I guess, I mean, I don't know, dude, when you're in Metallica, you're probably busy doing other shit, maybe. I don't know. But yeah, it's always a weird one. It's so crazy.
And has the family suffered any retribution from anyone as a result of speaking out?
They said that they've been mocked and laughed at, yes, for decades. Nothing to gain, everything to lose. This is not a career-enhancing, thing, especially back then.
Exactly.
So you've actually got US officials, possibly not military, maybe intelligence, gaslighting and intimidating, bullying, threatening people to try and stop them from talking about what they saw.
No question.
I mean,
dude, the gaslighting part is just, I feel like this has a huge part to do with like the difficulty in disclosure, because not only are you saying, okay, we covered this up, but it's like we made you feel like you were crazy. We ruined some of your lives. We publicly ridiculed some of you for speaking about this, but it was actually true. Like people would be liable. And I mean, definitely suable in America. I know you guys love suing. It's like a sport over there. You have like the NBA for suing people over there. You guys love a bit of a lawsuit over in the land of the free. Mate, lawsuits will be getting slung around like bullets. People will be getting sued left. It will be the World Series of suing when disclosure happens, because so many people are going to be liable for so much shit. And like, I think, Bob Lazar is another classic case of the gaslighting. I mean, I personally believe Bob Lazar. Again, like James said, no one's, these aren't career enhancing moves to talk about this. They are generally career destroyers, credibility destroyers, character assassination destroyers. Like the whole people are saying this stuff for like fame and money. It's like, okay, who name one person who got wealthy and famous and lived a rich life because they came out talking about an alien that they saw or a UFO. Good luck. In fact, it'd be far easier to find a list of people who probably had careers and had wealth and had decent lives that were ruined because they spoke about these things. So it is going to be the absolute World Series of lawsuits when this shit comes out. And, you know, it's no wonder that the whole angle of the age of disclosure is like, yeah, okay, we know about these UFOs and aliens, but we're not going to tell you until you say you're not going to sue us. We want amnesty before we say this shit because we are fucked. Okay? We are legally absolutely fucked. We are going to be spending 7 months at Camp Penis and potentially another few months at Virginia because we are that fucked that we need full amnesty. Please, God. Di has gifted a membership and Cassandra has become a member. Thank you guys very much for the support. Guys, if you missed it at the start of the stream, we are doing a movie night tonight. It is part 2 of the Original V miniseries, which is a movie about humans that came to Earth as, you know, visitors from another planet. And, you know, they just said they wanted a bit of help and they were going to exchange their wealth of knowledge with the people of Earth. And it was just all sunshine and rainbows. But then they found out that they were actually shape-shifting reptilians. Fantastic documentary, actually. Really good little history lesson there that we're going to be looking at part 2 tonight. So that's in Discord. The link is below. It's free for everyone. You can come and hang out. We'll probably start that in about 10 or 15 minutes after the stream ends. Let's give Suki one more snack. If she wakes up, Suki. Suki. Good girl. Great work tonight, Suki. You did really well. Really put the work in. I appreciate your efforts. They do not go unnoticed. And guys, if you enjoyed the stream as well, let me know. Get in the comments. Chuck me an email if you want to get involved with a stream where we talk about memories and dreams. I think that could be a lot of fun. josh.polarity@gmail.com. And if you just want to support me and support the show, you can buy me a coffee at the QR code that just went away. You can protect yourself with a Proton VPN and privacy suite at the link there, proton.me/polarity. You get 23% off. Or you can become a member and support me that way as well. And you get access to all the members-only streams. That's $5 a month. But at the end of the day, I honestly just appreciate you guys watching and being here and having a good time in the live chat, because that is what means the most to me, is the community aspect and just seeing everyone have a laugh, smile, and have fun together. I love it. It's a great vibe. So thank you guys again. Let's come hang out in Discord. The link is down there. Mods, chuck it up in the chat. And be good to each other. Be kind. Make sure you're touching grass as always. And we'll see you guys in Discord for V. Thank you and take care.
Eventually people are going to say, what the hell is going on?
90K, by the way. Thank you.
No matter how far you go into the dark, when you flip, you go exactly the same place to the light in our galaxy. Everything. Because everything is in balance. Everything is a polarity.
I think it's just going to get weirder and weirder and weirder, and finally it's going to be so weird that people are going to have to